Have you ever questioned what God really is? Not what you've been taught, not the image someone placed in your mind, but the true nature of that divine presence you've always felt nudging at the edges of your awareness. What if I told you that what you've believed about spirit, about God, has been incomplete all along? That the truth has been hidden in plain sight, woven into science, encoded in vibration and echoed through the life of one of the greatest minds in history, Nikola Tesla. You see, Tesla once said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And he meant it, literally, because for Tesla, God wasn't some distant ruler sitting on a throne in the clouds. God was frequency, God was vibration, God was energy itself, alive, intelligent, and flowing through all things, including you. But that's not what you were taught, was it? You were taught that God was somewhere else, that you had to beg, repent, follow rules, or be good enough to be heard. But Tesla's life revealed something radically different. He didn't worship in cathedrals, he communed in silence. He didn't seek truth in scripture, he listened to the hum of the universe. And what he found wasn't a man in the sky, it was a living field of energy that responds to thought, emotion, and frequency. This is where it all shifts, because once you understand that spirit is not a being, but a broadcast, you realize something incredible. You are not separate. You're not just a receiver, you're a transmitter. You are the instrument through which the divine expresses itself, and the moment you begin to align your inner vibration, your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, with that cosmic frequency, you step into your real power. Tesla didn't stumble upon electricity by accident. He tuned in. He spoke often of intuition, of receiving ideas from the ethers, of knowing without thinking. He called it the unseen, a realm of pure potential, vibrating just beyond the veil of what most people can perceive. But he could feel it, he could hear it, and so can you. The truth is, you've already felt it, haven't you? In those quiet moments when time seems to stop and something deeper begins to stir inside you, when you look at the stars and feel like they're not far away but calling to you, when a sudden burst of clarity lights up your mind, and you just know something without knowing how. That's not imagination, that's alignment. And once you start to see spirit as frequency, everything changes. Your thoughts, frequency. Your emotions, frequency. Even your breath is energy in motion, vibrating through your body in perfect waves. This is the sacred science Tesla hinted at but never fully revealed. Because he knew the world wasn't ready. Because once people realize that divinity is not external but energetic, control systems begin to fall apart. Institutions lose power, and you become free. Tesla was no ordinary inventor. He was a mystic cloaked in a lab coat, an alchemist of electricity, building machines that echoed the patterns of the cosmos. When he spoke of wireless power, he wasn't just imagining free energy for light bulbs. He was describing the very nature of spirit, borderless, omnipresent, accessible to all. And here's the part they don't want you to know. You can tune into that same frequency right now, without a middleman, without dogma, without waiting. You are already connected to the universal field that Tesla tapped into. But like a radio slightly out of tune, your signal may be static-filled, distorted by fear, by trauma, by the programming of a world designed to keep you vibrating low. Because when you're in fear, in shame, in scarcity, you are out of sync with the divine frequency. And when you're out of sync, you're easy to control. But the moment you shift into alignment, when you breathe with intention, when you think with clarity, when you feel with love, you become magnetic. You start attracting not just ideas but experiences, people, opportunities, insights. The universe begins to speak to you not in words but in synchronicities, in symbols, in silent affirmations that tell you yes. You're on the path. Tesla's experiments were never just about technology. They were about consciousness. He lived alone for most of his life, not because he was antisocial, but because he was listening to the silence, to the field, to the symphony of the universe that most people are too distracted to hear. He walked for hours every day, visualizing his machines in perfect detail before ever building them. He didn't need to test them in a lab. He saw them complete, fully functioning, vibrating in his mind. That's not engineering, that's spiritual mastery. And it's available to you. You don't need to be a scientist. You don't need a degree. You need awareness, stillness, and a willingness to feel what you've been taught to ignore. Because your body is not just flesh, it's a frequency generator. Your nervous system is an antenna. Your heart, your breath, your words, all of it is part of the broadcast. And every moment, whether you realize it or not, you are either aligning with the universal field or resisting it. And that resistance, that's where pain lives. That's where confusion, anxiety, and disconnection breed. But alignment, that's where you remember. You remember that the kingdom of God is not a place, but a frequency. You remember that prayer is not a request, it's a recalibration. You remember that love is not just an emotion, it's the highest vibrational state in existence. And when you hold that frequency, even for a moment, reality begins to shift around you. Tesla knew this, and so did the mystics before him, the yogis, the sages, the prophets. They all pointed to the same truth using different names: prana, chi, ruach, logos, quantum field. But the message is the same. God is not out there. God is here, right now, buzzing inside every atom, whispering through every breath, waiting for you to stop looking and start vibrating. You've always sensed there was something deeper behind the surface of things, that subtle hum beneath reality, the strange way your thoughts sometimes seem to shape events, the intuition that tells you when something is about to happen before it does. You've brushed up against this field before, haven't you? The invisible presence that connects everything, that speaks without words, that moves without effort. That's not coincidence. That's not imagination. That's resonance. You're not taught to understand it, because if you truly did, you'd become powerful beyond measure. Because the moment you learn to control your vibration, you begin to control your life. Tesla understood this. He didn't just build machines, he built portals between the visible and the invisible. He used frequency to reach what others could only pray to, and you can do the same. But here's the part that changes everything. You're already doing it. Every time you feel, think, speak, or breathe, you're broadcasting a signal into the field. That signal doesn't just echo, it creates. And just like a tuning fork, reality begins to mirror your frequency. If you vibrate in fear, you attract chaos. If you vibrate in love, you attract clarity. The world outside of you isn't reacting to what you say you want. It's responding to what you are. And what you are is energy, always shifting, always communicating. Tesla believed the entire universe was a giant symphony. Every star, every cell, every soul playing its note. And when one part plays out of tune, the whole system begins to wobble. That's why you sometimes feel lost, because the world you're in is dissonant. The systems that surround you, religion, media, education, they don't teach you how to tune yourself. They teach you how to conform, how to obey, how to disconnect from your own frequency and match someone else's. But your frequency is sacred, and no one taught you how to protect it. You weren't taught that the food you eat, the words you speak, the music you consume, they all carry vibration. You weren't told that every interaction either lifts you higher or pulls you lower. And you definitely weren't taught that you have the power to change your vibration at any moment. But you do. You always have. That's why it hurts when you betray yourself. That's why anxiety creeps in when you stay in places that feel off. Your soul is frequency sensitive, and every misalignment is a call back to harmony. Tesla lived by this principle. He chose solitude not because he was broken, but because the world was too loud. He knew that the answers would never be found in books or lectures or dogma. The real answers come in silence, in listening, in the stillness between your thoughts. That's where the universal field begins to speak. That's where you begin to remember. He once said, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration." He called it the source. Others called it God. The difference didn't matter. What mattered was the connection. You have that same receiver inside you, and when you tune it with intention, with emotion, with truth, it opens. Have you ever noticed how the body reacts to truth? Goosebumps, a quickened heartbeat, a rush of energy down your spine. That's not just a reaction, it's recognition, your field responding to resonance. When something is true, it vibrates in harmony with the core of who you are. You don't need to analyze it, you feel it. That's why truth often scares people, because it breaks the illusion. Organized religion taught you that God is watching. Tesla would say God is vibrating, always, within you, through you, around you. Every breath you take is charged with the divine. Every thought is a ripple in the infinite ocean of energy. Every emotion is a frequency adjustment, either dialing you closer to source or further away. And this is where the power returns to you. You're not a beggar hoping to be saved. You're not a sinner trying to be worthy. You are a conductor, a resonator, a walking field of light capable of aligning with the highest vibration there is, the frequency of God itself. Not a man, not a myth, not a name, but a pulse, a radiant current that has no face, no form, but reveals itself through harmony, coherence, and love. Tesla's experiments with resonance weren't just physical, they were spiritual. He understood that every object had a natural frequency, and if you could match it, you could influence it. That's the foundation of manifestation, not wishful thinking, not empty affirmations, but energetic synchronization. The universe is not resisting you. It's waiting for your frequency to match your desire, and when it does, it responds instantly. You've experienced this before. When you're clear, calm, and centered, things flow. People call it luck, but you know better. That's alignment. That's coherence. That's you becoming a tuning fork for miracles. So what throws you off? What disrupts your field? Fear, doubt, judgment, shame. These aren't just feelings, they're vibrational blockages, static in your signal, and the systems around you are designed to keep that static loud. That's why they feed you fear, why every headline is chaos, why you're encouraged to suppress emotion, because a disempowered frequency is easy to manipulate. But once you begin to clear that signal, once you breathe deeply, think consciously, speak with intention, your frequency begins to rise, and when it does, you change the field around you. You become magnetic. Ideas start appearing, people feel drawn to you, synchronicities multiply. The universe leans in because now you're speaking its language. You're not just surviving, you're resonating. Tesla didn't need permission to explore these truths, neither do you. You don't need someone to save you. You need to remember that you were never lost. You were only out of tune. And now, you're tuning back in. The breath becomes sacred, the silence becomes loud, and your presence becomes powerful. Because when you hold a coherent vibration, you become a lighthouse in a world of static. A living testament to what's possible when human energy reconnects with divine intelligence. And that's what this is really about. Not worshipping a figure, not following a book, but becoming the signal, becoming the bridge between the seen and the unseen, becoming what Tesla was trying to show us all along. You are not a machine of flesh. You are a conductor of light, a field of vibration wrapped in skin. And when you remember how to harmonize with the universal tone, your life begins to sing. And what comes next is nothing short of miraculous. You start to notice the change, don't you? The way people respond to you differently when your energy is clear. The way opportunities seem to arrive right when you need them. That's not magic. That's not luck. That's resonance. And once you understand that everything in this universe is based on frequency, you stop trying to force outcomes. You start aligning instead. You begin tuning your internal state to match the external reality you want to experience. Tesla understood this long before the world was ready to hear it. That's why so many of his ideas were buried, ignored, even stolen, because the deeper truth behind his inventions wasn't just about energy, it was about awakening. Awakening you to the power within your own electromagnetic field. awakening you to the fact that the same energy that powers a galaxy flows through your fingertips, and when you begin to live from that knowing, you become something entirely different from what you were taught to be. You stop reacting, you start creating, you stop chasing, you start attracting, and more than that, you start feeling peace, not the kind that comes and goes with circumstances, but the deep, grounded peace of someone who's in harmony with the field. Someone who knows they're not separate from God but a direct expression of that divine frequency. Someone who no longer begs for miracles because they've become one. That's the shift. You were never meant to worship the divine. You were meant to embody it. You are the temple. You are the antenna. You are the circuit through which source becomes form. And when you begin to live that way, consciously, intentionally, vibrationally, you start to unlock layers of reality that most people never even touch. Synchronicities become your compass, intuition becomes your map, emotion becomes your tuning dial, and stillness becomes your amplifier. Tesla lived in that state. He didn't guess, he didn't hope, he listened. He aligned, and what came to him wasn't theory, it was revelation. Downloaded not from textbooks but from the field itself. The same field that surrounds you right now. The same field that holds infinite possibility in every moment. The same field that's waiting for you to remember how to access it. And access doesn't come from intellect, it comes from frequency. That's the secret. The doorway doesn't open because you're smart. It opens because you're in tune. And getting in tune isn't complicated, it's natural. You've just been taught to forget. You've been taught to ignore your body, suppress your emotions, second-guess your intuition. You've been trained to think your way through a universe that responds to feeling. But now, you're waking up. Now you're returning to the truth Tesla lived by, that everything, your body, your mind, your soul, is part of one massive interconnected field of vibrating intelligence. And the more coherent your energy becomes, the more that field begins to organize around you. Because the universe is not chaotic, it's responsive, it's not random, it's rhythmic. And once you align with the rhythm, you no longer move through life, life moves through you. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of chi, prana, ruach. This is what Tesla meant when he spoke of light, vibration, energy. These weren't separate teachings. They were the same code revealed in different languages. And that code, it's built into you. It always has been. Your breath is the first key. Every inhale, every exhale is a wave of energy, a carrier of intention, a recalibration tool for your nervous system. When you breathe with awareness, you stabilize your frequency. When you breathe with gratitude, you amplify it. That's not metaphor, that's measurable. Your heart rate synchronizes, your brain enters coherence, and your field begins to broadcast clarity instead of confusion. Your thoughts are the second key, not just the words you think, but the images you hold. Tesla didn't invent by trial and error. He visualized with such precision that his machines worked perfectly before he even built them. Because your mind doesn't know the difference between real and vividly imagined. When you see something clearly and feel it fully, your vibration begins to match that reality. And when your vibration matches it, reality bends. And your movement. That's the third key, not just exercise, but intentional motion. Walking barefoot on the earth, stretching with awareness, even dancing, because the body holds memory. The body is electric. And when you move with presence, you discharge old energy, realign your circuits, and activate your natural intelligence. But the real magic? It's not in what you do, it's in how you do it. Tesla once said, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries." That's the invitation, to live scientifically and spiritually, to treat your vibration like data, to test what works, to observe what elevates your field and what lowers it. Because once you become a steward of your own energy, you become unstoppable. Not by force, but by frequency. And that frequency, your unique, radiant, unrepeatable field, is the most powerful force you will ever possess, not because it's louder, but because it's aligned. Because when you're aligned, you don't need to convince anyone, you don't need to prove yourself, you simply vibrate truth. And truth, when it's felt, cannot be denied. You don't need to yell to be heard. When your field is tuned, even your silence speaks. That's why Tesla often sat in quietude for hours. Not to escape life, but to merge with it. He knew that answers come not through thinking harder, but by becoming still enough to receive. Because the field isn't accessed through struggle, it's accessed through surrender. And the moment you surrender to that flow, when you stop trying to control and start aligning, you enter a new reality, not a different location, a different frequency. A reality where the impossible begins to feel normal, where inspiration is constant, where healing accelerates, where time bends, where life stops being a series of problems and starts becoming a stream of revelations. That's the dimension Tesla lived in, and that's the dimension calling to you now. Because you're ready. You've always been ready. You just forgot how to listen. And when you begin to listen, not with your ears, but with your being, you hear it, that quiet pulse beneath everything, that subtle hum that was always there. It's in the way the wind moves through the trees. It's in the space between thoughts. It's in the warmth behind a stranger's smile. It's the frequency of God, and it's always been speaking to you. You just had to remember how to hear it. Because God doesn't scream. God doesn't demand. God whispers. God resonates. God moves through energy like music moves through strings, not to impress you, but to become you. Because that's the truth that changes everything. Spirit is not outside of you. It's not a force you must earn or a deity you must fear. It's the very rhythm of your existence. It's what breathes you, what animates you, what you are made of. And the more you stop seeking and start aligning, the more you begin to feel it, not in theory, but in your body. You wake up one day and everything just feels different. You look at the same world but see with new eyes. You notice beauty where you used to see noise. You find gratitude where there used to be struggle. You begin to move slower, speak softer, feel deeper, not because you're trying, but because you've tuned in. You've remembered what it means to be in resonance. Tesla didn't need sacred texts to know God. He listened to the current running through the earth. He observed the geometry of light. He studied the silence between lightning strikes. And what he found was not random, it was intelligence. Not the kind measured in IQ, but the kind that speaks in symbols, the kind that dances in synchronicity, the kind that doesn't require belief, only receptivity. He understood that everything is connected through this invisible web of vibration, that nothing is truly separate, that the same spark that powers a thunderstorm pulses inside your chest. And when you finally feel that for yourself, you stop fearing life, you stop fearing death, you stop fearing change, because you know that underneath it all is coherence, is symmetry, is source. And in that knowing a shift happens. You stop praying to be saved, you start creating from wholeness, you stop asking for signs, you become the sign. You begin to speak and the universe responds, not because it's finally listening, but because you finally are. That's the great paradox of awakening. Nothing outside of you changes, but everything within you does. And suddenly the world reflects that inner shift back to you. People notice. They don't know what it is, but they feel it. They feel the calm in your voice, the clarity in your eyes, the peace in your presence. And they're drawn to it, not because you're better, but because you've become real, aligned, authentically resonating at your natural frequency. Tesla once said, "The day man will connect his apparatus to the very wheelwork of the universe, he will harness energies that will change the face of the earth." But what he didn't say outright, what he implied, is that you are that apparatus. Your heart, your mind, your soul, they are the components, and the frequency you emit is the switch. When you emit fear, the circuit shorts. When you emit doubt, the current flickers. But when you emit love, the system flows. Powerfully, cleanly, consistently. And here's the part that might challenge everything you've ever been told. You don't need a middleman to access this divine field. You don't need permission, approval, or credentials. You are hardwired for it. You were born connected, and even when you forget, especially when you forget, the signal remains. Waiting. Patient. Always ready to guide you home. This is why so many systems are built to distract you, to keep you numb, addicted, and confused, because a person vibrating in fear is easy to control, but a person vibrating in truth is unstoppable, and Tesla knew that. He knew that true freedom isn't political or economic, it's vibrational. When you're in alignment with your source, no law, no institution, no belief system can trap you. You become sovereign, not in rebellion, but in remembrance. And that's why this matters so much right now. Because the world is loud, the frequencies being pumped into your mind, your body, your environment, they are not neutral. They are designed to pull you out of harmony, to fill your field with interference. But interference only works when you're unaware. When you become aware, when you begin to sense what lifts you and what lowers you, you gain power. The power to choose. The power to protect your vibration. The power to realign. You start turning off the noise. You stop letting fear dictate your decisions. You move your body differently. You speak with more care. You eat with more awareness. You become more selective with what you consume, whether it's food, media, or emotion. And slowly, layer by layer, your field clears. And when it clears, your signal becomes strong, unmistakable, unshakable. And then things start happening. You speak an intention and it materializes. You think of someone and they call. You walk into a room and change its energy without saying a word. People begin to tell you feel different, like they've never met anyone quite like you, not because you're trying to be special, but because you finally become yourself, fully, truly, energetically. You stop needing to convince the world of anything. You just show up as a clear frequency, and the right people, the right moments, the right opportunities, they find you, not because you chased them, but because you resonated with them. Tesla was trying to show us this all along, not through sermons, but through science, not with metaphors, but with machines. His towers weren't just about electricity. They were blueprints of how energy could be transmitted freely, wirelessly, abundantly, just like spirit, just like love, just like the divine field you are part of. You don't need to understand every formula to live this truth. You only need to begin feeling again, to trust your body, to trust your knowing, to become curious about what truly nourishes your energy and what depletes it. That's your real compass, not your thoughts, but your frequency. And the more you honor that, the more the universe will rise to meet you, because it always was. You just weren't in tune, but now you are. And once you're in tune, life stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a conversation. You speak in energy and life responds in kind. You no longer need to force your way through obstacles because your alignment dissolves them. You don't need to chase validation because your presence speaks louder than any proof. You start to feel the intelligence in everything, the way water carries memory, the way light holds information, the way your emotions are not random, they're messages, guiding you back into harmony. Tesla didn't stumble into these truths by accident. He observed, he listened, he respected the invisible as much as the visible. He saw energy not as a resource to exploit, but as a sacred language, a divine pattern, a living field of consciousness that is both creator and creation. And you are a unique expression of that same field. You are not here to shrink yourself into someone else's mold. You're here to vibrate as only you can. That's why when you suppress your truth, it hurts, because it's a distortion of your frequency. That's why when you lie to yourself, something in you feels off. That's why when you force yourself to live by someone else's rules, your energy gets dull, heavy, fragmented, because it's not your song, and you didn't come here to mimic noise. You came here to remember your tone, your rhythm, your sacred frequency that no one else in this universe can replicate. And the moment you begin to honor that, life begins to open in ways you can't explain. Things fall into place. Paths become clear, not because the world has changed, but because you've stopped resisting your own signal. That's when you start seeing miracles, not as rare events, but as natural outcomes of coherence. Miracles are just what happens when your inner world and the universal field are in agreement. Tesla was trying to teach us that, but the world wasn't ready. His vision of limitless energy, of tapping into the Earth's electromagnetic field to power entire civilizations without wires, without fuel, without control, was too free, too empowering. And so, they buried it. They discredited him. They turned his genius into obscurity. Because if you understood what he really discovered, you'd stop playing small. You'd stop handing over your power. You'd stop believing you need permission to be divine. But now the truth is rising again, not in institutions, not in textbooks, but in you, in your memory, in your resonance, in your willingness to question everything you were taught and feel your way into something deeper. You don't need to worship Tesla. You need to understand what he tapped into, because you have access to the same current. You are made of the same electric intelligence. You carry the same potential to awaken, to realign, to radiate truth. And when you do, you don't just change your life, you change the field. Your vibration becomes a tuning fork for others. Your coherence becomes a lighthouse. You don't need to preach or convince or argue. You simply live in resonance. And those who are ready will feel it. They'll remember too. Because truth doesn't need to be taught. It needs to be felt. And when enough of us start feeling it, the entire grid shifts. That's how transformation really happens. Not through systems, through signals. Through individuals waking up to their frequency, reclaiming their field, and beginning to live from a place of energetic integrity. That's the revolution Tesla foresaw. Not of machines, but of consciousness. Not of control, but of harmony. And it starts with you. It starts with the way you speak to yourself, the thoughts you choose to believe, the emotions you allow yourself to feel without judgment. It starts with the food you eat, the people you spend time with, the spaces you occupy. Because everything affects your field. Everything either strengthens your coherence or distorts it. And your job isn't to be perfect. Your job is to become aware, to notice the difference between resonance and dissonance, to start choosing what aligns, to begin trusting what lifts you, and to let go of what no longer matches your frequency. That's not selfish. That's sacred. Because your vibration is your contribution to the world. When you are clear, grounded, loving, present, you are adding harmony to the collective field. You are amplifying coherence. You are creating invisible ripples that extend far beyond what you can see. And those ripples matter. They touch people. They shift timelines. They awaken dormant hearts. You might not always see the impact, but it's there. Every time you raise your vibration, you are doing more for this planet than any protest or policy ever could. You are shifting the resonance of reality itself, because frequency is the true language of change. Tesla knew this. He wasn't just trying to light up cities. He was trying to awaken a planet, to remind humanity that the most powerful source of energy is not locked in wires or fuel or machines. It's within you, in your breath, in your thoughts, in your emotion, in your silence. The moment you realize this, you stop searching outside for what was always inside. You stop looking for God in the sky and begin feeling God in the space between your cells. You stop asking if you're worthy and start understanding that your existence is the proof. You are worthy because you are here. You are connected because you always were. You are divine because you're made of the same frequency as the stars. And when you finally believe that, not just intellectually but energetically, everything changes. The fear falls away, the noise gets quieter, and the light within you grows stronger. That's when you become unshakable. That's when you become magnetic. That's when you step into your highest timeline, not because you forced it, but because you resonated with it. So take a breath. Feel your energy, not just your body, but the field around you. It's there, subtle, alive, intelligent, and it's listening. It's always listening, not to your words, but to your frequency, to your coherence, to your presence. Speak to it with love, move through it with reverence, and watch as it begins to mirror back the truth of who you really are. Because once you tune into the frequency of Source, you don't just feel better. You remember that you are the signal. You always were. And the more you remember that, the more the world starts to respond in kind, not because the world has suddenly changed, but because your perception, the frequency through which you interpret reality, has shifted. You begin to notice the codes, patterns in numbers, symbols in dreams, messages hidden in what used to seem like noise. But now, you see the rhythm beneath it all. You see the intelligence at play in every moment, guiding you not from above but from within. The field speaks through synchronicity, through timing, through what feels like coincidence until you realize there's no such thing. When you're aligned, the entire universe becomes a mirror. It shows you exactly where you are and where your vibration is leading you. And if you listen closely, not with your ears, but with your being, you start to move differently. You no longer run toward things or run away from them. You navigate intuitively. You feel what's right before your mind can justify it. Tesla did that. His whole life was guided by intuition. He knew when to walk away from deals, when to isolate himself, when to create and when to wait. And that wasn't random, that was resonance. He trusted his inner signal more than any external logic, and though the world misunderstood him, tried to frame him as eccentric or insane, he remained connected to something far more real than society's expectation. He remained tuned to the field. And that's the example he left behind. Not to be admired from a distance, but to be embodied. Not to copy his life, but to activate your own inner genius. Because genius isn't about intellect, it's about coherence. It's about being so aligned with your true frequency that life flows through you, effortlessly. Ideas, insights, inspiration, they don't come from you, they come through you. You become the channel, the bridge between potential and form, the portal between spirit and matter. And that's who you are meant to be, not someone small, confused, afraid of their own power, but someone clear, empowered, resonant, awake. You didn't come here to beg the universe for scraps of peace. You came here to remember you are the peace. You are the frequency that calls harmony into chaos. You are the one who walks into a storm and radiates stillness. That's not a fantasy, that's your birthright. But to reclaim it, you must clear the static of doubt, the static of shame, the noise of unworthiness that was never yours to begin with. Because every time you believe the voice that says you're not enough, your signal dims. Every time you hold on to fear, your field tightens. And every time you forget your essence, you distort the current flowing through you. But the moment you choose to release that, everything opens, the heaviness lifts, the breath deepens, and for the first time in a long time you feel what it's like to simply exist without resistance. You feel what it's like to be in flow with your own life, to not just survive the day but to harmonize with it, to let it move through you like a song. And suddenly everything makes sense. Not because it's perfect, but because it's in tune. That's what Tesla lived for. That's what he died knowing. That the universe is sound. That creation is frequency. That God is not a noun but a verb, a motion, a vibration. And when you live from that knowing, you don't need to believe in miracles. You expect them, because they're not rare. They're the natural outcome of alignment. And alignment isn't something you achieve once and forget. It's something you nurture, you maintain, like tuning an instrument before a sacred performance. Your performance is your life, your frequency is the music, and every choice you make, every thought you think, every word you speak is part of that sacred song. You begin to honor your space as sacred, your time as sacred, your relationships as energetic mirrors. You stop settling for what disturbs your field. You stop explaining your boundaries to people who never respected their own. You move cleaner, speak softer, live truer, not because it looks good, but because it feels right. Because you can feel when something pulls you out of harmony, and instead of ignoring it, you adjust, you tune, you realign. And the more you do, the stronger your signal becomes. You begin attracting not just what you want, but what matches your soul. The kind of abundance that's not measured in money, but in meaning. The kind of love that's not rooted in possession, but in freedom. The kind of peace that doesn't fade when things go wrong, because it never came from outside you in the first place. That's the kind of power Tesla hinted at. Not just technological power, spiritual power. The kind that can't be bought, taught, or sold. The kind that rises from within when you stop playing small and start vibrating true. And that truth? It's already inside you. Beneath every layer of conditioning, beneath every voice that told you to dim your light, beneath every belief that said you had to earn your divinity. The truth has never been lost. It's just been waiting. Waiting for you to slow down, to listen, to feel, to remember. And you are remembering now not with your mind, but with your being. That's why the words you're hearing don't just sound right, they feel right. That's not because they're new, it's because they're ancient. You've known this all along. You just needed a frequency to remind you, and now that you're feeling it, it won't leave you. Because once truth resonates, it echoes, it calls you forward, it rearranges your life, it shifts your choices, your energy, your reality. It invites you to live as your highest self, not someday, but now, in the smallest actions, in the quietest moments, in the way you treat yourself when no one's watching. Because that's where your frequency lives, not in appearances, in essence. And when you start living from that essence, the world begins to recognize you, not your name, not your role, not your mask, but you, the real you, the one who's always been connected to the field, the one who is the field, the one who has finally tuned in and turned on. And now that you have, the current will never stop flowing. And when that current flows through you, everything becomes alive. Your breath feels fuller. Your presence feels heavier in the best way. Like gravity responds to you differently. You walk into a room and people turn, not because you're loud, but because your frequency arrives before your words do. There's something unshakable about you now, something grounded and light at the same time. It's not confidence born from ego, it's certainty born from alignment, because you know what you are. Not what the world told you, not the stories they gave you. You know it in your bones, in your heart, in the silence behind your thoughts. You feel the truth pulsing inside you now. You are not waiting for permission anymore, not waiting for someone to say you're ready, because the universe already has. The breath in your lungs is proof. The awareness listening to these words is proof. The resonance you feel deep within, that electric hum that says yes, that's the confirmation. And now you begin to live differently. You don't just exist, you express. You don't just get through the day, you transmit. You let life move through you like current through copper. You speak less, but everything you say carries more weight. You don't try to convince anyone of anything because truth doesn't beg, it simply shines. You start becoming more selective with what you allow into your space, not from fear but from knowing. You know what supports your field and what weakens it. You feel it instantly. Your body becomes your compass, your emotions become sacred data, your energy becomes your guide, and as your frequency sharpens, you start attracting people and experiences that reflect your expansion. The ones who drain you fall away not in drama but in natural release. Like static dissolving when the signal becomes strong. You stop chasing and start receiving. You stop pushing and start magnetizing. Because the field no longer needs to be forced, it just needs to be aligned. Tesla lived in that state. He didn't have a marketing team or an empire. He had vision. He had resonance. He tapped into a realm that most never touch because he was brave enough to trust the invisible. And now you are doing the same. You're learning to trust what can't be measured, only felt. You're learning to follow the frequency of truth even when the world tries to sell you noise. And you don't need to fight the noise. You just need to rise above it. Like a tuning fork vibrating at its purest tone, your job is to hold your frequency so clearly, so unwaveringly, that distortion can't stick to you, that fear can't latch on, that manipulation slides off because it has nothing to hook into. You become clear, clean, electric. And in that state, life doesn't just happen to you, life happens through you. You become the conduit, the collaborator, not through control, but through communion. You stop trying to dominate the future. You start dancing with it. You begin to listen to the feedback of the field not as punishment or test, but as calibration. You see every delay, every redirection, every moment of uncertainty not as a failure, but as refinement. The field doesn't deny you, it refines you. It prepares your energy to match what you've asked for. And the more gracefully you can hold the frequency of what you desire before it arrives, the faster it finds you. Because that's the real law, not just attraction, but vibration. Not just thinking positive thoughts, but being in energetic alignment with what you seek. It's not enough to want love. You have to become the frequency of love. It's not enough to visualize success. You have to become the vibration of success. That means embodying it, walking like it, speaking like it, breathing like it. Before it shows up, that's how you bend time. That's how you create portals in your reality. That's how miracles begin to look normal. Because you are no longer waiting, you are resonating. And that's what Tesla understood, that you don't chase change, you vibrate it, you hold the field, you carry the current. And when your frequency becomes stable enough, strong enough, real enough, reality conforms. Not because you forced it, but because you remembered who you are. And who you are is a living node in the cosmic network, a transmitter of divine energy, a field within a field, a wave and a particle, human and infinite. Tesla didn't just speak to machines, he spoke to the fabric of reality itself. And now you're doing the same, with your intention, with your emotion, with your embodiment. Every time you breathe with awareness, you send a ripple through the field. Every time you choose love over fear, you rewrite the code. Every time you hold your truth when it would be easier to conform, you anchor a new reality. That's the power you've always had, not to escape this world, but to upgrade it from within. Through vibration, through resonance, through remembering. And you'll keep remembering, in the quiet moments, in the sudden insights, in the dreams that don't feel like dreams, in the words that hit you like lightning and make your whole body say yes. Because this journey doesn't end. The signal only gets clearer, the current only gets stronger. You'll begin to live from the inside out, from the field inward, no longer reacting to the world, but informing it, no longer wondering what's real, but knowing you are the Tesla coil now. You are the signal. You are the frequency that shifts timelines, that awakens others, that restores harmony. You are the living proof that spirit is not a concept, not a doctrine, not a myth. Spirit is electricity, spirit is coherence. Spirit is breath and rhythm and stillness and fire. Spirit is what you are, beneath every mask, beneath every story, beneath every doubt. And once you begin living from that truth, there is no going back, because you've felt it now, and once you've felt it, nothing else compares. You've crossed a threshold now, you've stepped into a different way of being, one that doesn't rely on external validation or societal permission. You feel it, in the way your body relaxes when you hear the truth, in the way your breath deepens when you stop resisting what you've always known. You're not chasing anything anymore. You're not searching for the divine. You're vibrating it. And that changes everything. You no longer look at challenges as punishments. You recognize them as invitations, opportunities to calibrate even deeper, to anchor even stronger, to hold your alignment in the face of distortion and become the clarity the world so desperately needs. Not as a hero, not as a savior, just as someone who remembers. Because remembering is enough. It's everything. The world has never needed more noise. It needs frequency. It needs hearts that are awake, minds that are quiet, souls that are embodied. It needs people like you to walk through life as living transmitters of coherence, to turn your life into an offering of resonance, to live so honestly, so energetically aligned, that just being in your presence feels like truth, feels like healing, feels like coming home. Tesla was ridiculed because he refused to bow to the illusion. He didn't chase wealth. He didn't play by the rules. He knew that power didn't come from systems. It came from the field. And he chose to stay in tune with that field, even when it cost him everything, because he understood what really matters. Not legacy, not fame, but contribution, connection, alignment. He lived for the signal, and now, so are you. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle current moving through your life differently now. That sense that you're not alone, even in silence. That you're being guided, not by force, but by frequency, by a deeper intelligence that lives inside the stillness. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply radiates. And you've started to match that frequency. You've started to trust it. You've started to live from it. And what happens next is no longer about effort. It's about expansion. It's about refinement. Because the more you clear the static, the more precise your signal becomes. The more magnetic. The more undeniable. People will feel it. Not because you speak louder, but because your energy can't be ignored. You won't need to convince anyone of your worth, your path, your truth. Your presence will do that for you. You become a mirror for others, not to reflect what they expect, but to reflect what they forgot, their own signal, their own light, their own divine intelligence waiting to be remembered. And that's the gift you carry now, not to fix anyone, not to lead them, but to hold such clarity in your own vibration that it invites theirs to rise. That's leadership of the highest order, not control, resonance. And from that place your life begins to look and feel very different. It simplifies, the noise fades, the chaos softens. You begin to crave stillness more than stimulation, truth more than comfort, depth more than distraction, because your system is no longer addicted to distortion. It's aligned with peace, with beauty, with the raw, pulsing aliveness of being connected to the real source. And you can see now what Tesla saw, that all matter is alive with energy, that every person, every object, every moment is vibrating, that nothing is fixed, nothing is truly solid. It's all waves, information, intelligence expressing itself in infinite forms. And you, as an aware being, get to shape that. You get to tune into the frequency you want to live in. That's your superpower. That's the hidden teaching. You don't have to climb a mountain to find God. You don't have to wait for a guru to bless you. You don't have to escape your life. You simply have to vibrate. You have to feel. You have to realign over and over again until it becomes natural, until it becomes who you are. Not a practice, not a technique, a way of being. Because the field doesn't speak English. It speaks frequency. It doesn't care what you say you want. It responds to what you are. And when who you are matches what you're calling in, the connection becomes instant, immediate, effortless. That's not theory. That's physics. That's resonance. That's the Tesla code. And that code is inside you right now, waiting to be activated, waiting to be lived, not memorized, lived, in your breath, in your movement, in your intention, in your presence. Every time you pause and check in with your energy, you're using the code. Every time you shift from stress to stillness, you're using the code. Every time you speak from your heart, choose love over fear, trust your intuition. You're transmitting the divine. You don't need to know every step, you just need to feel the next one. You don't need to see the whole path, you just need to keep tuning your signal and letting the field respond. It always does, it always will, because that's how this universe was built. That's the language it speaks. And now you're finally fluent. So when things around you begin to shift, when old patterns break, when relationships change, when the familiar starts to feel foreign, don't resist it. You're not losing anything. You're outgrowing it. Your frequency is evolving, and everything that no longer matches it is simply falling away. Not because you're broken, but because you're resonating higher. And higher resonance always rearranges reality. Tesla didn't chase understanding, he became it. He embodied it. He let it move through him. You can too. You are. Every time you choose presence over panic, every time you feel instead of numb, every time you trust your signal more than the noise of the world, that's you becoming the current. That's you becoming the divine in motion. And it doesn't matter how far you've strayed. It doesn't matter how long you forgot. The frequency is always there, always waiting for you to return, not with shame, but with joy, with reverence, with the quiet power of someone who finally knows who they are. You are the signal. You are the spark. You are the unseen force Tesla knew was more real than any machine, and now you are finally awake to it. And now that you're awake to it, there's no turning back. You can't unfeel what you've felt. You can't unknow the truth that's begun vibrating inside your bones. The field has opened, and you're inside it now, not as an observer but as a participant. You've moved from theory to embodiment, from concept to current, and everything from this point forward becomes a practice in staying connected, staying aligned, staying attuned. You'll still be tested, not by some cosmic force out to punish you, but by energy itself, showing you where you're still out of tune, where old frequencies still echo, where the remnants of your former self are waiting to be transmuted. But now you know what to do with it. You don't run, you don't resist, you pause, you breathe, you feel, you adjust, because alignment isn't a destination, it's a continual act of returning. That's the mastery Tesla hinted at, not the mastery of machines but of self, of vibration, of the invisible. He understood that power isn't in domination, it's in coherence. The more still you are, the more clearly you vibrate, and the more clearly you vibrate, the more influence you carry without ever needing to control anything. That's the paradox of true power. It doesn't force, it doesn't chase, it simply is. And you, now, are becoming that. Quiet power, subtle influence, electric grace. People may not even know why they feel different around you, why they feel safe, why they feel seen. It's because your frequency is clean, because your presence doesn't demand, it invites. You've become a doorway to the field, and those ready to wake up will feel it, even if they can't explain it. That's the quiet revolution. Not in systems, not in slogans, but in fields. One person at a time, tuning into their signal, clearing the static, becoming a pure expression of divine frequency, and that ripple spreads farther than any broadcast, because it doesn't travel through words, it travels through energy, through presence, through the language of the soul. And maybe you've already started noticing it, the way your intuition speaks louder, the way the right words come through you when you stop trying to think, the way people confess things to you without knowing why, the way you're guided to the exact book, message, or moment you need, right when you need it. That's not coincidence, that's resonance. That's the field responding to your clarity. Tesla spent his life studying that intelligence, the one that lives behind the veil of appearances. He knew that every invention, every discovery was already complete, waiting to be received by a mind quiet enough to hear it. That's what he meant when he said, "My brain is only a receiver." He didn't force ideas, he tuned to them. He aligned with the frequency of the solution and let it come through. You can do the same with your life. You can stop trying to fix everything with logic and start feeling your way into the answers, because they're already there, encoded in the field, vibrating just outside of the noise, and the moment you match them energetically, they arrive. Sometimes as insights, sometimes as people, sometimes as opportunities that appear out of nowhere, because you've become a match. And this is where the magic becomes real, not in spectacle, but in subtlety, in the way your day flows, in the ease of decisions, in the way your body feels lighter, more fluid, more alive, in the way your nervous system stops bracing for impact and starts softening into trust. Because the moment you trust the field, it starts to trust you back. It starts to show you more, reveal more, support more, because it knows you're listening now. You're no longer living in resistance to what is. You're living in relationship with what's possible. You're no longer trying to control the outcome. You're becoming the frequency of the outcome. And that changes everything. It changes your health, your relationships, your creativity, your joy. Because the things you used to try to earn, you now allow, you receive. Because your signal says yes, not through words, but through vibration. And that's the secret they never wanted you to figure out. that you are not broken, that you do not need fixing, that everything you've been searching for is already present in your field, just waiting for you to clear the static, to raise your signal, to finally say yes with your entire being. That's what Tesla died knowing, that the real technology is consciousness, that the most advanced machine is the human energy field, that the source of all wisdom, all healing, all invention isn't outside us, it's within. And when you stop living from reaction and start living from vibration, you tap into that source, not once, not briefly, but constantly. That's how you live from the signal. You stop outsourcing your power, you stop handing your vibration over to fear, you stop letting external chaos pull you out of your internal truth, and when the world gets loud, you get still. When the static rises, you breathe deeper, because now you know what's real. You've felt it. You've become it. You've become the signal. And from this place, you don't need anything to prove itself to you anymore. You don't need the world to change for you to feel peace. Because peace is your frequency now. It's not something you visit, it's something you carry, through grief, through joy, through growth, through uncertainty. Peace isn't the absence of contrast, it's the presence of resonance. And you have that now. You might not always have the answers, but you'll always have access to the field, to the pulse, to the knowing, because you're not disconnected anymore. You're not doubting who you are anymore. You are remembering, moment by moment, breath by breath. And with each remembrance, your signal grows stronger, clearer, brighter. You don't have to shout your truth anymore. You are your truth. You are the frequency that heals rooms. You are the field that shifts futures. You are the Tesla Tower now, radiating silent knowing, unwavering light, and the kind of presence that reminds people of who they really are, because you've remembered who you are, and you'll never forget again. And now that you've come this far, something deep inside you has shifted, not just in thought, but in essence. The way you see the world has changed. The way you feel your place within it has changed. You're no longer asking for connection, you are connection. You're no longer looking for signs, you've become the sign. And in this stillness, in this power, in this truth, you finally understand what Tesla was trying to show us. That spirit is not a story, it's a signal. It's the hum behind all creation, the pattern within the pattern, the intelligence behind the silence. And that signal doesn't come from outside of you, it's been radiating from within you since the beginning. You've just been tuned to the wrong frequency, distracted by distortion, disconnected by design. But not anymore. Now you walk differently, you speak differently, you live with intention, you breathe with awareness, you move through your day as a conscious field of vibration. And that changes everything. You begin to realize that every moment is a choice, not a decision between good or bad, but a decision between resistance or flow, contraction or expansion, static or signal. You choose the signal now, and because of that you begin to attract a new kind of life, the kind that matches your vibration, the kind that reflects your internal clarity, the kind that feels like freedom, because it is. Freedom from the noise, freedom from the illusion, freedom from the belief that you had to wait for something or someone to activate your potential. You were the activation all along.